Morning, everyone. We are a small group, but it doesn't mean that the thinking and the engagement isn't going to be rich and wonderful, especially as I'm literally going to throw the ball back into your court. So today is open mic day. We have this periodically. It's every now and again. It's good to find out, what's mulling over in your mind. How are you? What are you thinking, and how can we participate in that thinking? Donovan's just joined us, so it's good to have him on board. And Donovan, I'm hoping you can hear. But just to say, it's so good to have heard your story yesterday. I know that we battled a bit with the sound, but there were, as I was saying, it's open mic day, but it may also be that you want to reflect a bit or ask Donovan a question, and hoping that maybe he is able to share with us some of his responses. So I am opening the floor. And if there is, I'm not going to pick somebody to start off with. Is there anybody who wants to start first? Otherwise, I am going to pick somebody. Edward, go for it.
Yeah. Get the hard stuff out of the way first. That's what I always think. Get the pain early. This thinking thing is quite difficult, isn't it? Because there were two things I wanted to talk about, and I was trying to decide which one I was going to talk about, and then I suddenly decided, well, that's three things, because I could talk about choices, and that made me think about you, Lee, and what you said about Edward de Bono yesterday. Oh, no, Monday, wasn't it? And then I started thinking about de Bono's 6 thinking hats, and then I started thinking about the various hats that we all wear, which kind of got me sort of going down quite a few tracks. And then I thought, well, how long do we allow ourselves to sort of wander off on different tracks before we need to come back to what we were thinking about in the first place? And then I came back to your donkey and thought that this choice, but you really need to make a choice, otherwise you're going to starve to death. And thinking about donkeys made me think about carrots and sticks, which brought me back to the one thing I decided to talk about. So I'll leave the other one for later, but I noticed that when I first had my health scare, it was a real motivation to start running. So when I started running, I was moving away from something. And then I realized later on that I was actually moving towards things. I wanted to achieve goals. I wanted to do new things. I wanted to go further. I wanted to go faster. So I was moving towards things. And then I've been blogging about the environment, and, I've been a bit doom and gloomish. We're losing all the rainforests. We're losing the battle against climate change. But just recently I've changed to saying, well, actually, we're moving towards this. We're moving towards cleaner air. We're moving towards better quality of life. And what I thought would be really interesting to discuss is, is there a process or a procedure or a timeline where you move from one motivational thing, which is moving away from something, so a stick, and then moving to the carrot? And does it reverse round at some points in time? Maybe sometimes you start moving towards something, and then you use the stick to keep you going. And I certainly noticed, when I first planned to run a marathon, I was really motivated by the thought of running a marathon, and I purposely told all my mates so I'd have that stick of being embarrassed if I failed. So I just thought it might be interesting to look at that motivational process, and are sticks more appropriate sometime, or carrots more appropriate sometimes, or is it switching about? It just fascinates me because it is almost two distinct things. There's nothing in between. It's either stick or carrot.
Thank you, Edward. You were definitely taking us down some rabbit holes for a moment. We were meandering, a couple of squirrels thrown in for good measure. But what a fascinating topic. So we'll definitely hold that and think about motivation. And it just reminds me of, and just the name of the book escapes me, but it's an older book about incentives, and that talk about incentives being the lever that changes the world. And so if you know the right incentive, you can change anything. So that's fascinating. Thank you for that. That's really got us off onto a good track. Trevor Carty, what is mulling over in your mind as you munch away at rusks and coffee?
Yeah, that's my reward for a very good run, Edward. I really put my foot down this morning because I woke up late. You know, technology is just getting so clever. I had the beautiful fortune of taking my 79-year-old mother yesterday to an eye specialist, ophthalmological surgeon. And that in its own is a mouthful. So I just call him the eye surgeon. And he's got rooms on the ground floor of Morningside Clinic, which is great because old people don't like to climb stairs and get dotty with lifts. And when I got there, I was very skeptical because my mom had cataracts removed 4 years ago, and she had it done at the Sandhurst Eye Clinic. And my mother's a reader. That's what she does. She wakes up in the morning, she has coffee, she starts reading. She has her lunch delivered to her, she eats that, she carries on reading. And at about 12:30 at night, she puts her glasses down and goes to bed, and the cycle starts again the next day. But when they did these cataract ops, it was hugely successful in the right eye and a dismal failure in the left eye. And for the last 3.5, 4 years, she's been saying she's blind in this eye. She can't see a thing. So this eye is doing all the work, and it's really good. And she listens to her radio while she reads. And she listens to some program I've never heard of. But when I visit her, and I visit her once or twice a week, she said to me, "My boy, I've made an appointment to go and see this eye surgeon at this practice." I said, "Yeah, why are you doing that, Ma?" She says, "Because the hospital says that he's the best surgeon in the world." And I said, "And what qualifies them to say that?" She said, "No, he does all the presidents in Africa and the parliamentary people, and so he must be quite good. And I don't trust this last lot I went to because they just can't do anything and blah, blah." So I said, "Okay, cool." So the appointment was set. And the one thing my mother does, she writes stuff down. But I just like to check what she's written down. So I phoned the guys the day before. No, they didn't have her. But my mom did tell me that they were rude at reception. So maybe she was rude back. And because she was rude, they didn't put the thing in the book. You know, old people can be like that. So I phoned out, got this woman. She was pleasant. So she said, "Look, she's not in the book, but let's squeeze you in." I said, "So how does it work?" She says, "You bring 3,500 Rand for the first consultation, and we'll run through everything and bring the glasses that she wears." So I thought, okay, lekker. So 3,500 Rand, that's a fairly decent sum for a consultation. But if he's the world's best eye specialist, if you put that in dollars or pounds, it's not unreasonable. I didn't tell my brother and sister that my mother was going to waste their inheritance. So I schlepped her along. We got there. Man, what an experience. Just to see the technology that this guy had and the team of people that he had from the moment we arrived there. It was the slickest show I've ever seen in my whole life. And finally, he says, "Look," and he's got a magnificent bedside manner, which makes it all that much more pleasant. And he says, look, so now we've done all of these things. He says, let me go and show you what's going on in the eyes. And he could take pictures from the back of the eye through the side section. And he says, this is what's going on here. And he says, this is what's wrong with your left eye. You've got a scar tissue here. Have you had an accident? Did something happen to your eye? No, and the answer is no. And so he says, look, he says, with this technology he's got here, this is a membrane problem, this is a scar problem. He can cut and tuck and paste and laser and do all this good stuff. He says, but I need to take an x-ray to see exactly what it is. So I say, okay, well, cool. When do we do that? He says, well, you know, you've got your opening money to see me. He says, go outside and the ladies will give you a quote. And I'll have to then dilate your mother's eyes with some anesthetic drops. And I said, okay, cool. So I go outside. So it's $2,600. I said, well, versus coming back and paying a consultation fee again. I said, Ma, you know what? Let's go for it. And so they made me sign for that. And they took us into this next room, man. And I thought I'd seen great machines in the first two rooms. You should have seen the machines in this room. They were brilliant. And he had another specialist lady who just took these x-rays and cut the eye in half and took the things from the back. And then we went back into his room about 20 minutes later. And in the meanwhile, he had been seeing clients in between my mother. So he had seen, I reckon, about 8 clients, what I'd counted, coming in and out of the surgery. And then he said, oh, look at this. This is such good news. And I said, what's that? He says, it's exactly what I thought it was. And we can clean this up perfectly. So I said, what does that mean? He says, no, we can do laser surgery. And now I'm thinking, oh, we're going to have to book in again and get a theater room. And hello, kiddies. And he says, look, your ma's eyes dilated now. I could do the surgery right now because my mother's pupils were about this big. I said, don't we have to book into the hospital? And he said, no, it's just another one of my rooms down here. Man, and he took my mother in there. He says, it's going to sound like asteroids. I'm going to be looking through these things into her eyes. She's going to stay dead still, and I'm going to shoot with a laser beam and take away all this membrane stuff and the cloudiness and the scarring. And I said, Ma, I think we've got to have this done, eh? So she said, no, it's not even negotiable. She says, let's do it now. He says, okay, come with me. And 5 minutes later, he says, all right, we're done. Let's go and have a look now what's there. And you have got to see what this guy had done in the 2.5 hours that we had been there. Okay, now my mother's eyes are this big and they've had laser surgery, so she's all a little bit dotty and spotty, but she's got to go back in 2 weeks' time because we started with what do you call it when they see how well you can read and how well you can't read. And I was incredible how well my mother could read with her one eye, and absolutely how blind she was with her other eye. And I walked out with a 28,000 Rand bill. So my question for today is our sight and health worth the money that we potentially can pay for it? And what happens if you don't have the money, but you have the issue? And so I was thinking, man, I'm so glad my mother listened to the radio because she reads so much every day. And here there was a testimony from the hospital how good this guy was. And when I was there, I thought, well, I might as well just ask him who does his medical malpractice insurance. And he told me 4 of the funniest stories, and he became a client of mine. So there you are. That's just, I don't know. It is, but I can't wait to see my mother's eye test in 2 weeks' time. That was on my mind.
Trevor, you are a storyteller of note. We were entirely with you every step of the way. So thank you for taking us on the visit to the ophthalmologist and entering us into the world of 4IR technology. And as you say, the thought behind it is, okay, wonderful for those who can afford it.
Lee, just finish with what happened is while we were having this, I was thinking about this scarring that my mother had. And I remember as a child, somewhere in my early teens, waking up to my mother screaming. And I went through, and what she had done is she always had eye drops on the side of her bed. But she was a teacher, and she had taken her Tipex thinners and put it in her eye. And I said to the doc, could this possibly? He says, unequivocally, you have solved the riddle. And so here's the thing. To solve riddles, we might sometimes have to go back a long way.
There you go. Thanks, Trevor. Great, great, great story. Donovan, I've just muted myself. You are with us with your two kiddies. So we would love to be introduced to them and tell us how you are and what's happening with you.
Morning. Thank you, Lee. Morning, everyone. Yeah, I hope you got a bit of my story yesterday. I really wanted to do it with a presentation, but it's fine. Hopefully, I'll share it as time goes along. Yeah, for me, I was actually thinking of a friend of mine. I think his uncle or his nephew is very rich. So he had a problem with finances. Like he was unemployed, he needed money desperately, and so he went to his cousin, who had stacks of money, thinking that he would, ask and he would get an easy answer like a yes, and he would, get what he wanted. Then the answer from his friend really shocked him. His friend said, think, think, think. And his friend left him with that. He was so upset. And then later, as he was sitting down meditating, he realized, he's the only one that can help him out of his situation. And he started practicing positive thinking, enhancing his mind, developing himself. And that is how he overcame his situation. Now he's independent. He's got his own company. He's thriving and he's helping others to, think positively, to use their mental capacity to overcome, whatever situations they might face. Thank you.
It's a great story. Thanks, Donovan. I recently also heard a similar story of a young man who went to his dad for a loan, and his dad said, "I love you so much, my son. No." And and how that, and he was really, really, really on the last two pennies to rub together, and but it forced him to find solutions. So thank you for that. Donovan, oh, you've just frozen there. But maybe you can just type your other kid's name in the box and then we can get to meet them as well. So that'll be amazing. Jasper, what's mulling over for you?
Morning. Now, I was reminded by Trevor sharing that story of his mother's eye thing, and just my own situation. I grew up at grade 6. I already had to wear glasses, and every year with the new test, the glasses became thicker and thicker. And the scare of this whole, and then when I was an adult, and they started to they moved towards solving my eye problem, which was astigmatism. And if the first solution was they would physically cut into the eye, and then instead of the eye being like a rugby ball, it then became more round, but it wasn't an exact science. And although I wanted to solve my problem, I didn't want to have that uncertainty. And was on one of my business trips, I sat next to an eye surgeon and asked him, where's the technology now? He said, no, that's old technology. They now have this, call it laser kerotomy, which is what Trevor was describing there. And he says it's an accurate science. So I was still scared, but that moved me on to say, all right, let's have it done. And by going into the procedure with wearing thick glasses, and in those days they were extra cautious, and you had to then wear an eye patch for the whole night to basically let your eyes relax, and you can't see. So my young son Yaku, when I wanted to go anywhere, I had to almost piggyback behind him. So for a whole afternoon and a night, I had the experience of what it is to be totally blind, and it was a scary thought. And you know, your mind plays games with you. What if this wasn't a success? And then the next morning, my wife took me, and they then took off the patches. And in that absolute miracle moment, when as the first patch comes off, and I have no glasses, but I can see absolute clear, far away, in detail words and stuff like that. So that, you know, that put me onto this whole thing of technology. And I'm also following Peter Diamandis and what's busy happening in the world of health, and amazing breakthroughs that they're starting to have there, and also just the general technology of what can be done with electrical cars and AI and all sorts of things. And on the one hand, people who don't follow this are not aware of all these things. So in Trevor's case, his mom was reading and she heard about it, and therefore she knows about it. But so the word just came up in me: disconnect. The disconnect that people have with what is actually happening and can solve problems. And you know, Peter Diamandis's projections of data almost becoming free, where right now it's a huge issue. And how will the world change when data becomes free? And I know Trevor, Carty, and myself had also discussions in this regard. But the disconnect of people who are now so trapped in their current world, and I'm just thinking of the sad situation of the young man who died in Senegal, and the uproar, and now the politicians climbing on the wagon and making it a racial issue, and all sorts of things. And yet, for all of those things, if we can somehow don't look back but look forward and work together, and that brings me to the idea of vision. What is vision? Because so here we talk about technology that can improve my vision, but I think the challenge why so many people are stuck, and they think they have vision and they think they live their lives according to vision, but they actually just live their lives according to the programming of someone else, and they don't even know what's the origin of that programming, and they just say, this is the way I will survive, and they think that way of surviving is their vision. And the reason why people struggle to have a vision is that from seeing the potential of the future until it's recognizable by outsiders to say, hey, I can now see what you mean by sending a man to the moon, or sending a rocket up in the air and let it come back and land on its, you know, without being damaged, or whatever it is. And I think of gig, for instance. Today, gig is a tangible, touchable thing, but it wasn't there many years ago. And I know you guys, you know, we spoke about wisdoms and your vision of that. And I think it's only now that, well, you've done things to it, but now we can start seeing a tangible aspect of it, how it can touch people's lives and becoming your ongoing friend. So I was just thinking about real vision versus people who think they are visions, you know, they're following their vision for their life, but they actually don't. They're just in a rut and they're just carrying on. And the challenge there is because of the time disconnect between having the vision and the realization of the vision. So we need almost special tools, and in you know, in most cases, almost a spiritual conviction that I know I'm on the right track with the right thing. But to get it to the point where it's now recognizable by other people, and that disconnect, time disconnect, can sometimes be years and even decades. So I'm just on a thinking program to say, wow, I'm happy that I'm reading the stuff of Peter Diamandis, and I'm seeing what's busy happening on the technological side. And I'm happy that I've started 12 years ago with Gig. I'm happy that I started to connect with guys like yourself, and that here we've got a group of forward thinkers. And I feel sorry for the people who are not seeing what we're seeing, because their world is bleak. Their world is now almost with Trevor's mom's eye, where she can see nothing out of that one eye. So it's almost how do we help people to see? How do we help people to discover potentiality, and so that they can start moving towards new things? Yeah, so those were the things that was triggered by what was said before.
Wow, Jesper, that's we looking to visionaries to create vision, and to encourage more visionaries, and I think that's amazing. That's what we need, and as you say, to create this connection between what's possible and what we need, and those connections to be made more and more. So exciting times. So thanks for that, Cecile. What are you thinking about at the moment, besides leaving and moving off to Jeffreys Bay?
Yeah. So you know what, it was so fascinating listening to Trevor and listening to Jasper and to everyone. So I'm not going to say anything, because I see our time is nearly finished. It was just fascinating to listen to them. And yeah, at the moment it's just packing up business, packing up house, doing karate. For next week is my grading. So that's what's occupying me at the moment. It's very narrow, but that's what the reality is.
Thanks, Cecile. Yeah, there's times for thinking and time for doing, and just getting on with it. Trevor, Nell, what are you thinking about? What's in your mind at the moment? We'll pick one thing, let's put it that way.
All right. Pick one thing. For a brain cell to actually work out this technology that it opens when I click it, is what's on my mind at the moment. But Lee, if folk have not seen your 30-minute interview with Shirley Moss, please grab that link, put it in this chat facility, and I'm going to ask all of you to go and have a look at it. You know, over this COVID period, I made a comment that one Sally Anderson was one of the best internet video, was it an interview or talks that I'd heard for a long time. I put it in, if not in the top 10, easily in the top 100. And Lee, I'm going to tell you that yours is up there as well, and I'll tell you why. It is because it came across as so candid, so natural, and so sharing what most people actually do not share in their minds about what happened during lockdown. So I've just got to pat you in the back. Where is that link? Please, if you haven't had a look at it, and I'm not blowing smoke here, Lee, I must tell you that you're up there with the best of the best. And here I was playing with this thing, ophthalmologist and mentalmologist and that sort of thing. And I think that you are as good as that specialist that Trevor was talking about. And we should play around with this mentalmologist story. I also connected with people that have been working with us yesterday. So I had a chat to Ed. I had a chat to Doyle Bueller. We're busy having a chat to Sally Anderson. And the connections that we are making are now right to start expanding on a global basis. So that's where I'm playing around with is, why are these people coming on board here? And instead of trying to work out why it is that not more are coming on board, we work with the people that are working with us, because there is something that is attracting us together. And what we should be looking to do is say, okay, how can we work with these people to help them achieve their grand visions and objectives, while we want to achieve our own grand visions and objectives as well. Has Lee, there it is. Okay. So please go and have a look at that. And I'd love you guys to actually comment back on whether I am just entranced by Lee Harrison, or whether there is something genuine that can actually affect change in the world from what I heard there yesterday. Lee, I doff my cap to you. And I want to make certain that we do things with all other people. Listen, I'm going to shut down because Trevor Carty's family is in the background here and they're making a noise. So those are my thoughts for today.
Well, thanks, Trevor. I appreciate that. That was unexpected, but much appreciated. It was just to give the context of the interview. So I've been doing various interviews with, started with South African authors and then business owners. And then I've also started a series on personal growth, people who are interested in personal growth. And I've loved it. It's been an absolutely, it's a fascinating journey when you listen to people's stories and get to delve a little bit more into their lives. And so I've really, really enjoyed it. And then this friend of mine, Shirley Moss, who I've known for many years and also is a trainer, and I've done some work with her over the years. And she contacted me and said, okay, Lee, it's your turn to be interviewed. She'd never done it before, so it was a first-time venture for her, and she interviewed me. So it was very different, actually, being on the other side. It's interesting how and it's actually what I was talking about, always been thinking about, came out of a topic that was raised yesterday. So Mpumelelo and I have done some work together. So the University of Mpumalanga wanted for their executive, wanted a workshop, a virtual workshop on transformational leadership. And I got hold of a number of experts and they all couldn't make it for various reasons. And so I thought of Mpumelelo. He has put his foot into the leadership development field. He is an absolutely brilliant researcher, and I thought he would do well. So it was a risk from my side because I didn't actually know how it was going to work, but it went brilliantly. You must know that something is going well. So this was planned. It's a two-session program starting yesterday and then following up on in November. When 3/4 of the way through the workshop, Mpumelelo says, okay, I just need to go through this quickly because I'm aware of time. And the VC interrupts him. So the Vice Chancellor interrupts him and says, Mpumelelo, let me just stop you right there. This is so important. And this is so good that we are not going to stop after 2 sessions. So please plan that we are going to have another 2 sessions after this. So yeah, so it went absolutely brilliantly. But one of the things that came up in the conversation in terms of transformational leadership was this emphasis on creativity and innovation. And that if that's something that you're going to emphasize as a transformational leader, you need to create an environment where failure is part of the norm, that there's an element of risk when you try something new. Yes, you need to manage that risk, but you still have to allow that something isn't going to work as perfectly as you would like first time round. And it was interesting, the response from the group kind of pushing back on that and saying, no, but we are now going to, we're not going to be as excellent. We're not going to be as good. We are nervous of doing something wrong, and certainly of allowing people in our team to step out of the regulations and that we've put in place to ensure the smooth running ship. And so it's really made me think about what does it take to create, not just for yourself, but for a team of people to work with, to say, we're operating it within excellence and we're going this way, but in order to keep being excellent, we actually have to try new things. And how do we manage that? Actually brought me, and as Edward says, you know, your thinking goes round and round in all these different places. So that thinking actually brought me to something that Edward said a long time ago, and that was about writing his book and putting something out there for the first time. And the sense of vulnerability and that risk of, I've produced something, and what does it take for me to now just put it out into the world to say, okay, what do you think? And the risk and the vulnerability that comes into that. So those are the thoughts that have been mulling over in my mind. And so I don't know where that leaves us for tomorrow. And I'm wondering whether there was a theme that was sort of picked up, and that is vision. And I'm just wondering whether we haven't really delved into that in any real depth. So, and I think about Trevor Carty's story about, you know, physical vision, but what does that mean to the connect that Jasper's also talking about between vision and how do we make it happen? And in order to make it happen, it almost comes back full circle to planning and doing, because Edward was talking about motivation. And so what is it that keeps you moving forward? You know, the carrots and the sticks. So let's talk about vision tomorrow. Wherever you want to take that topic. So thanks everybody, good to see you, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.